Hello and welcome back to Reading with Mo. I am finally back with a new video for you guys. I am catching up because I have not posted on here for about 5-ish weeks, I think, an actual video. I know I did a live. I think that was the last time I posted anything on booktube. On my booktube channel was a live video, and yeah, that was still about like a month ago. So I am glad to finally be back with you guys again. I kind of disappeared for a little bit because I was sick for a while. I got sick with just like a regular cold and I got better, only to then get sick again, and that time with COVID. So hopefully everything is good now. My immune system, I guess, is just trash right now. But I was definitely reading a lot of books, so we're catching up. I am going to catch up, you guys, with the books that I read in the month of January. Even though it's kind of late, I still want to talk to you guys about these books. I don't want to not mention them because I got to 17 books in January. I was a reading storm. I feel like January typically for me is a good reading month as far as like quantity. I started off the year with just a desire to read anything and everything. I will definitely be talking to you guys about the books that I read in February. My February TBR, my February wrap up should be up within the next couple of days as well. So I figured it would make most sense to first talk about the books that I read in January, and so I could be caught up at least with that. I have 5 books here that I physically read. All the rest of them are books that I read on my Libby app, so mostly like new releases. I was going in on the new releases in January a little bit too much. I feel like I want to cut back a little bit. I don't want my my reading to be so much new releases, but I mean, I'm not mad about it. So I guess I'll just start off here with the books that I have physical copies of first, since they're right in front of me. First up, we have a classic, and that is The Black Tulip by Alexandre Dumas. This book, I really love this, by the way. I believe I had to order this from like the Waterstones in like, I forget where, Waterstones in another country. But this is my first Alexandre Dumas book, and I am definitely going to be picking up The Count of Monte Cristo this month. Once you see my TBR for this month, you'll see why I sigh, because that book is such a brick of book. But after reading this book, I feel like his writing is so accessible. I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 5-star rating. Not a 5-star rating. I'm lying to you guys. I gave it a 4-star rating, maybe closer to like 4.5. This was really close to a 5-star rating. I enjoyed this, especially for a classic. I really enjoyed my time with this. We're following our main character. His name is Cornelius Van Barrel, and I'm not going to go too much into the plot of all of these books because, like I said, 17 books, but I do want to give you guys the gist of what it's about. So he basically lives to cultivate this black tulip. There's this black tulip craze going on in, where is this set? In Holland, I believe. Yeah, in the 17th century. His godfather ends up getting murdered, and that sets off a series of events that end up with him being caught up in all of this political intrigue, ending up in jail. He ends up forming this relationship with the jailer's daughter, and I just feel like this book was so fun. Feels like an adventure story, and I really enjoyed it for a classic. This book was definitely a little bit more faster paced than I expected, which was nice, and I feel like I was able to learn a little bit about history around this time that I just wasn't really aware of and didn't know much about Holland during the 17th century. So all in all, this was a win. Next up, we have Inez of My Soul by Isabel Allende. This was my first time experiencing this author's writing, and also influenced me to want to pick up the rest of the books that I have on my shelves by her. I currently have 6. So actually in February I read another one. I was thinking about putting a 3rd book of hers on my TBR for March, but I figured I'll wait a month. Since I only have 6, I can read them throughout the rest of the year. So this was my first one. I really enjoyed her writing. All in all, maybe 4.25 stars for me. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend. Yes, it's translated from the Spanish by Margaret Sayers Piden. This book is a historical fiction novel. It's set in 16th century Spain, and we are following Inez, who is this young seamstress at the beginning of the novel. And with this book, you can really tell that Isabel is very, very knowledgeable about the history around this time. You can tell that she's done a lot of research, and this is a definitely historical novel. There are a lot of characters that we're following, characters that are based off of real people in history. We, at the center of it all, are following Spain as it's trying to conquer the Americas. Inez's husband ends up going off on his own, leaving her to herself, and she ends up going on this adventure with a journey that leads her to Pedro de Valdivia, who was a conquistador and became the first royal governor of Chile. So with this book, I definitely learned a lot of history about Chile that I didn't know before. I actually listened to this off and on with the audiobook. The same, I think I did actually with the Black Tulip too. I feel like I definitely had a love-hate relationship with the characters, which I feel like Isabel kind of wants you to have, because you are reading about people who are coming in as conquistadors, colonizers, and taking over land from other people and trying to subjugate them. So you definitely, while it's an interesting story, they're not exactly like the most likable of characters to read about for sure. But it was definitely interesting reading about the main character Inez and like the stuff that she goes through. And I mean, as a woman, especially during this time, you only really have so much say in what's going to be happening in your life. So backing it up to actually the very first book that I finished in 2023, and actually the last book in a series, is Assassin's Fate by Robin Hobb. This is the final time I'm going to be talking about this series as far as like currently reading it on this channel. I have been reading it now for the past like, I don't know, year-ish, and I'm really glad to say I enjoyed the conclusion to this series. I don't think I actually gave any of the books 5 stars. Epic fantasy for me just is, well, I enjoy reading it. It's not my favorite genre, but I did really enjoy this series. And like I gave this one maybe like a 4.5 star rating. I really can't say too much because it's the conclusion of a 16-book series. This is the conclusion of the last trilogy, which is called the Fits and the Fool trilogy. We get to see a lot of characters that we haven't seen since previous series within this realm of the Elden series, and I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I can't say too much because it'd be super spoilers at this point, but I am glad that I finally finished it. I feel so accomplished having finished this series. This is the longest series I have ever read in my life, and probably ever am going to read in my life. I don't have any other series on my radar that are quite this long, 16 books, but it was definitely an accomplishment. This book was so long. It was over 800 pages, but I believe I listened to the audiobook with this as well, so it also helped me to get through them pretty quick, and they are very easy to listen to, although the stories themselves are a little bit slow paced. I feel like they still are very easy to listen to in that sense, so that you're able to listen to them pretty quickly. And as we finish one series, we pick up another. So I actually am picking up the next book in the Catch Up Book Club series, if you're familiar with that book club on BookTube here, and that is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I finished the first book in the trilogy, the first Law trilogy, and I gave this book a 4-star rating. I enjoyed it. It is described as a grimdark fantasy series. In this first book in the trilogy, I feel like there's not a lot that happens. Like there is some like scenes of action, but mainly we're just getting to know all the different players, getting familiarized with the world, the politics that are currently going on. We are following the perspective of a few different characters. I gave this book 4 stars. I can't remember if I told you guys that already. But yeah, we're following a few different characters. One is like a fencing champion, and one is a officer, and one is like a warrior or an assassin. And so we have a group of characters that we're all following. Their stories are kind of separate. They're not really too related. They're all in the same world, but by the end of the novel, they are kind of all setting it up for them to all be kind of colliding, I guess you could say. Like their storylines are connecting more. I'm definitely interested in picking up the next book. I need to actually purchase the next one. I want to get the same one in the same edition, so I need to order that from Amazon soon so that I can have it. And I believe I don't know when the live show is going to be for this book, but the book club will be having a live show, I believe sometime in March. So if I'm free, I'm going to be tuning into that. If not, I'll just watch it on a replay. And then the last physical book that I got to in January was Villette by Charlotte Bronte. This is my second book by this author. I previously read Jane Eyre, and I gave this one a 3-star rating. I thought for classic, like it was interesting, it was good, but it wasn't like anything that super stands out to me that I feel like I'm going to be thinking about for a long time. Like I read this in January and I'm already starting to really forget a lot of the plot points of this book. The thing with this book, it was published in 1853, and this is actually the author's final novel that she published. When I first started reading it, I thought this was going to be a 5-star read. Like the first chunk that I read, like I really loved the writing. I felt like the story was really interesting, and I don't know, somewhere in the middle it kind of just lost me a little bit. Maybe if I read it again, I would maybe give it a higher rating. We could always see, but we're following, it's kind of like autobiographical story. Our main character, her name is Lucy Snow. She has this tragic past and she flees England to go become an instructor at this French boarding school where the majority of the novel takes place. And this takes place in the town of Villette, as the title is called. Villette is the town that this novel mostly takes place in. So I feel like I really liked the point, reading the book up to when she goes to the French Academy, and when she first gets there, I feel like up to that point I was like thinking it was gonna be a 5-star rating, but then some of it kind of dragged and some of it wasn't as interesting as the first part to me, so that's why I ended up giving it more of like a 3-star rating. I feel like if it hadn't felt like it dragged on so much, then I definitely would have given this a higher rating. And I feel like looking at the Goodreads reviews, a lot of people have given it like not the greatest ratings because of similar issues of feeling that the story really dragged on. So the other 11 books that I'm going to talk to you guys about, they are all books that I do not own physical copies of. They are all new releases that I was able to, I believe all of these I listened to as audiobooks from my library. A lot of them are mystery thrillers, so that type of genre, I'm able to fly through those audiobooks. The first one I'm going to share is called Signifiers by Dani Shapiro. I gave this one a 4-star rating. The novel starts out in 1985. We're following 3 different teenagers who they've been drinking. One of them gets behind the wheel of a car and gets in a car accident that ends up changing all of their lives and their families' lives subsequently. There end up being secrets related to this accident that we wait throughout the novel to kind of find out what those are. I gave this book a 4-star rating, but looking back, I'm having a hard time remembering a lot of the specifics of this book, so I feel like this isn't one that's really going to stick with me a lot, but I do remember enjoying my time when I was listening to it. Then we have Age of Vice by Deepti Kapoor. This book I gave a 3-star rating to. There were a few times when I was listening to this book where I felt like maybe I should DNF it because I feel like I wasn't really paying the most attention to it. It wasn't always throughout the book really keeping my attention, at least as an audiobook. I feel like this is not one I would recommend on audiobook personally. I feel like I would have enjoyed it a bit more if I had read it physically. This is going to be one that's going to be hard for me to explain the plot of because it's very complicated and we're following a lot of different timelines that are jumping around. The main place that this book is taking place in is in New Delhi. I don't remember the year. At the beginning of the novel, we're following this scene where there's a Mercedes that jumps the curb and ends up hitting 5 people and kills them instantly. It's a rich man's car, but when the accident happens, there's no rich man on the scene at all, just a servant who can't explain the strange series of events that led to this crime. Basically, from there, we go way back and we go through our main character, who his name was AJ. We go way back through his childhood and everything that ends up to this point, but we're also not just following him. There is a couple other characters that we are following as well, like one woman, her name's Nita. This book takes place in like contemporary India, and we are following like some political intrigue stuff that's going on, as well as romance, violence, parties, business deals, all that kind of stuff. This book is described as partly like a family saga and partly as a crime thriller, which I definitely agree with. Crime dramas typically aren't something that I lean towards anyway, so I feel like that's also why I didn't give the book as high of a rating. But if you are into crime thrillers and stuff like that, I feel like, and you're into literary fiction, this could be a good mashup for you. Then I listened to the audiobook for Phaedra by Laura Shepperson, and this one I gave 3 stars as well. This one is the author's debut, and it's a feminist retelling of Phaedra, and it's described as for fans like Madeline Miller and Natalie Haynes. Lately, I've been kind of getting into reading some different like Greek myth retelling type books, and so when I see this one come up on my radar, I decided to check it out. I gave this book a 3-star rating, but honestly I probably should give it like 2 because I can't even tell you guys anything about this book at this point. It just really didn't leave a lasting impression or impact on me. which is one of the reasons why I'm really glad that I check out some of these books from the library and I didn't like waste my actual money on them. I think that I'm still interested in reading mythology-centered books. I just don't feel like this is one I was really into. It's not one I really enjoyed, so I don't even really feel like attempting to describe the plot to you guys. Like, you can go look it up on Goodreads if you were interested in reading that book. Next, we have Ghost Music by On You. I actually have another book by this author called Braised Pork that's currently sitting on my shelves that I haven't read yet. This one was another 3-star rating book for me. This book was very weird and different, and I'm not exactly sure how I feel about it. Like, there are parts of it that I enjoyed, parts of it that I was just like, okay, like whatever. We are following Song Yan, and she lives in a Beijing apartment, and she is a piano teacher for young students. We are kind of following her and her relationship with her husband as well. Like, she wants a kid and he doesn't, and he's a very busy businessman, and it's not really something that he wants, but she keeps pushing for. So we definitely are reading a lot of tension between them as a couple, as well as she gave up her career as the concert pianist to be with him, so we're kind of seeing her live with the results of that. She keeps having these weird surreal mushroom dreams, and I feel like that's kind of the part where the book lost me, in that I was just kind of bored by those parts. Like, I didn't really see the point. Maybe I'm just not super into like surreal writing like that, but for me, this book was like just okay. It's not really one I would highly recommend, but I am interested in reading Braised Pork still and seeing if because I do like the author's writing, so I want to give her another chance by picking up another book. But our main character, she eventually gets involved in this mystery of this concert pianist who disappeared and went missing. He was like famous, and he went missing like years ago, and she kind of gets wrapped up in that, and even that was like really weird, and I don't know what was actually real and what was like kind of in her head. So yeah, this was a book that kind of left more questions than answers. So if you are someone who likes more answers than questions, then I don't think you would like this book. Next, I listened to a mystery called Someone Had to Do It by Amber and Danielle Brown, and I really enjoyed this mystery. This was fun, really fun listen to kind of what I'm looking for when I'm listening to a mystery thriller audiobook in that genre. We're following our main character. Her name's Brandy, and she dreams of becoming a famous fashion designer, and she is currently working as an intern for this big fashion house in New York. It's not living up to exactly what she would want to be. She's mainly doing just all the grunt work, not really doing a lot of stuff that has anything to do with fashion. The main guy that she's working for, he has this it girl daughter, and her name is Taylor. And one night at a party, Brandy ends up overhearing something about Taylor that she should not have, and it ends up them being intertwined, and like, oh, the book is just like coming back to me now as I'm reading it and stuff, and I would definitely recommend this to you guys if you are into mysteries. I enjoyed it. It's not like super groundbreaking or anything. I just thought it was entertaining. We were following her and like her boyfriend and their relationship, and then the issues going on with the other girl, Taylor, and we are going back and forth between the two perspectives of Brandy and Taylor, and oh my god, Taylor as a character. I cannot stand her, but the author did really well in writing her as a character. They both definitely read as very believable characters, even though they made like stupid mistakes, and a lot of the actions and decisions that Brandy made, I was just like, girl, what are you doing? Like, obviously this is gonna end terribly. It's like watching a car accident. So I believe this author duo are sisters, so I'm definitely interested in if they release any other books again in the future, picking up whatever they release. So the next book that I wanted to share with you guys is called A City Under One Roof by Iris Yamashita. In this book, we are following a detective, and it takes place in Alaska. She ends up being stranded in this town during a storm because there's like only one way in and out, and the storm has made the bridge closed because it's too dangerous. And what's interesting and special about this town is that everybody lives in one building. It's one single high-rise building that the whole town lives in. It's a very small town. There's a teenager who finds like a severed hand and a foot that ends up washed up on the shore, and Cara Kennedy is the one who is the detective who's sent on the case. She is a detective from Anchorage, and she has her own reasons personally for being there in this small town, and she's investigating what will be potentially a murder, but they're not sure yet. So yeah, if you are into thrillers, I feel like this was pretty good. It was like a 3.5 star rating. If you are into thrillers, I think this is something that you would possibly be interested in. Then the next mystery is What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall, and I gave this one a 4-star rating. So in this book, we are following a group of 3 best friends. So when they were 11, they sent a killer to prison. He we're following Naomi, Cassidy, and Olivia. They spent the summer roaming around the woods and are attacked. When Naomi is attacked, she miraculously survives 17 stab wounds and lives to be able to identify the man that hurt her. The girl's testimony is what ends up sending this serial killer away, who is also wanted for murdering 6 other women at that time. Everybody, lauds them, applauds them for being heroes, putting this evil person in jail, blah, blah, blah. But they were actually liars. And so what are they lying about? We don't know exactly. So you have to read the book to find out. If you're into like small town mysteries with a lot of secrets, then I feel like this is a book that you would definitely be interested in. This book was pretty good and kept me guessing up until the end. I feel like there were a few little things that I kind of predicted from the beginning. But overall, like I said, 4-star rating. I pretty much enjoyed this book. The next one was a fun mystery I listened to, was Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This one I ended up giving a 3-star rating. I like the concept of it a little bit more than the execution, I would say, and I believe this is potentially the first book in a series. I'm not sure how I plan on continuing with it, to be honest, but with this book, I mean, as you can imagine from the title, we're following our main character. His name's Ernest Cunningham, and he is going to go see his family, who everyone in his family has in one way or another murdered somebody, and some of them actually more than once. He's going to this family reunion on a ski resort. So if you're into like those cold climate settings, kind of more like closed circle mysteries, then I feel this is like something that you would enjoy. You have to like this audiobook if you are into books that where the main character breaks the fourth wall and like talks to you directly, like you're actually like listening to the book instead of just like having the book read to you, if that makes sense. I hope I explained that in a way that made sense. I definitely feel like there's a lot of people that would really enjoy this book. For me, like I said, it was just okay because I wasn't really the craziest about the narrator voice, not the actual audiobook, but like the written voice that the author wrote. His perspective, like he was just okay, but I feel like this is definitely a mystery that a lot of people would enjoy. Next up, we have The Villa by Rachel Hawkins, and I gave this one a 4-star rating. So in this mystery, I really enjoyed this one. It's kind of like a gothic suspense mystery, and it's set in an Italian villa that has a really dark history. So we're following 2 friends, Emily and Chess, and they've been friends since they were kids, and in their 30s, they decide to take this girls' trip to Italy. One of them is the author of some like this book series, and the other one is kind of like a self-help person. So if you like books where like the main characters are authors and like books about books, then I feel like this is one that you would definitely like, because there is that theme throughout the book of other books. We are following 2 different storylines. So the 2 friends traveling to the villa in modern day is one storyline, and the second storyline takes place in the 70s, and we're following this like rock star who had rented this villa, and he invites like some other people to come up there with him, which a lot of events happen from that weekend of them spending the time there too. One of the people composing like this platinum album, and one of them ends up writing this best-selling novel, and one of them ends up dead. So it's a very big weekend. So in present day, we're following Emily. It's just kind of like digging into the past of this villa. So I enjoyed it. I definitely would recommend. Don't think I've read, I believe, yeah, this is my first time reading a Rachel Hawkins book. I think I have one other book by her on my shelves called Reckless Girls that I am now more interested in getting to sooner rather than later. Next up, we have a book that was a little bit of a disappointment to me, and that was The Survivalist by Kashana Cauley. I ended up giving this book only a 2-star rating, and I really wanted to love it. It just wasn't for me. So we're following our main character, who is a single Black lawyer. She ends up moving in with her boyfriend and his doomsday preparing roommates. It seems like it would be kind of interesting, but I don't know, it just kind of really missed the mark for me. Like, I found myself getting bored at some parts, not really understanding what or why our main character was doing and acting the way she was, and like her relationship with her boyfriend, not talking really about anything. The roommates were interesting. I say they were probably one of the more interesting parts of the novel, the roommates, but still I didn't feel like I understood them or really anybody in this book. I feel like the narration, the plot made it sound so interesting and had so much potential, but I don't know, just the book itself really just did nothing for me, and I didn't really enjoy it. This is a book that I probably, looking back, should have just DNF'd earlier and not finished. And then last but not least, the last book that I finished in January was The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwent. This one was a audiobook that I listened to that I ended up giving a 3-star rating to. This book all in all was okay. I feel like it was kind of run-of-the-mill, middle of the road, not very memorable. I'm not gonna really remember or think about it a lot in the future. But you would maybe like it if you are into like kind of dark academic type of vibes, possibly. We are following like this clique of ambitious students who are going to school at the University of Edinburgh. Claire arrives there and she is wanting to reinvent herself, and so she gets involved with this group of friends. She gets involved with this project that they're working on that kind of goes against everything that Claire has tried to repent for in the past, and they definitely kind of goes to a dark place. But she feels like once she's in, she can't go back out. It's described as like a thriller about the toxic battle between those who have and those who covet. All in all, like I said, just okay, not super memorable, not something I highly recommend, and like I'm sure I'm never going to probably think about this novel again. So on that note, those were the 17 books that I got to in January. I didn't have any DNFs for the month, which is good, even though there were a few that I feel like looking back now probably would have been better to DNF them and save my time on reading them, but now I know. And I was able to discover some new authors to me throughout the month, which is really nice as well. No 5-star reads, which was a little disappointing after reading 17 books, but I am so picky with my 5-star reads that I'm not surprised about it. So let me know if you guys read any of these books, if you have any thoughts on them, as well as what you guys read, if you can remember, in January that you would recommend to me. And I'll see you guys next time. That's it for today. Bye.